guys? It is Xavier Conley with Ebony Warrior Studios, and I am here today with my first video in what I hope to be a phenomenal series on cosplaying and prop building, anything that could help you guys get better at what you do and better at what I do. So, starting off today, we're going to go into what I like to call tools of the trade. So we're going to go over all the tools and things that I use to build the things that I build. Things like this. Because I like to build lots and lots of stuff. And I refuse to stop. So don't ask me to. So for this video, I'm going to separate things into three basic sections. Safety equipment first, then tools, and then our miscellaneous items and adhesives. I'm going to put adhesives and miscellaneous items together because it'll be easier for me. So, let's get into it, shall we? You're going to be dealing with EVA foam. It is a rather fun material to work with, but when sanding and or cutting it, there are a lot of hazards. Especially when sanding, because EVA foam makes super fine dust that is not fun for your eyes or lungs. So, starting off, you're gonna need a respirator. Yeah, you're gonna need a respirator. Everybody likes to make fun of me because on Cosplay Melee, I, on the first challenge, was wearing a respirator and I didn't have any filters. Make sure you have filters in your respirator. Otherwise you'll end up looking ridiculous like me. Next up on your safety items that you will need, boom, eye pro. You will need eye protection because EVA foam is dangerous and Dremels are dangerous. Flying objects in your eyes are dangerous. So, I would suggest, if you can, get yourself a pair of eye protective wear. Preferably something that seals the entire eye, because then when you're sanding, you won't have to worry about getting dust in your eyes. In addition to your safety equipment, you might want to have a good pair of leather gloves, because you will be working with hot materials sometimes, like when you're putting your EVA foam in the oven and such. So, when working with EVA foam, or foam smithing, as I like to call it, there are several tools that you will need to work with the foam well. So, first off, heat gun. You will need yourself a handy dandy heat gun. These are indispensable when working with foam because this allows you to direct heat on certain areas of the foam and mold it. So, you can find heat guns at Home Depot, Harbor Freight. There are several stores that I will repeat over and over again because they're usually where I shop. So Home Depot, Lowe's, Harbor Freight, great place to pick up a heat gun. And you can get one. I know Harbor Freight has one for $14, but get yourself a good one. I have a, sorry, they covered the logo for Cosplay Melee. Let me take that off of there. Wagner. Get a Wagner. Like me. I've had this one for about 4 years now, and it has yet to fail me. So get yourself a nice heat gun. And next up for tools. These are my favorite, absolute favorite tool for working with EVA foam. Everybody knows that, and they make fun of me for it. I like my tin snips, okay? There is nothing wrong with using tin snips to cut EVA foam. So, EVA foam, cut with tin snips. It's so much easier than using an X-Acto knife. X-Acto knife is up next on the list, but tin snips, it's like cutting paper with scissors. That's how easy it is to use these things. You can get these at Home Depot, Lowe's, I mean, any hardware store really. You can find yourself a good pair of tin snips, but they look like this. Next up on your list of tools, X-Acto knife. Such a dangerous weapon. It's like a mini lightsaber when it's sharp. It'll go right through the foam. Or when deciding on what type of X-Acto knife you want, there are two different blade sizes. I prefer the smaller blade because it allows the blade, for some odd reason, it's just worked this way over the past couple of years or whatever that I've been using them. The small bladed X-Acto knives stay sharper longer. I don't know what it is, but they stay sharper longer, so I prefer them. I rarely use the X-Acto. The X-Acto knife is good for little details and things like that, but for the main cutting, I'm using my pen snips. Next up on your tools that you will need, trusty dusty Dremel. If you don't have a Dremel, you need one in your cosplay arsenal. This is like the tool that everybody uses. You can do, if you're a beginner and you're kind of strapped on money, you could go with a Dremel 100 because they're like $20 or something like that. I upgraded finally to a Dremel 200 because it has variable speed. Variable speed. Dremel 200 allows you to, vary the speed, and it comes up with a little bit more tools with it. Now, the cool thing about Dremels, they come with accessories, different bits. They're all good for different things when working with foam. So, let me show you a couple of them. Here we go. This little grinding bit here, bam! This grinding bit is great for making little engravings and things in the EVA foam. And then, of course, it comes with like 100 million different variations in sandpaper on the little drums. And then, of course, cutting bits. You can use those for, I like to use steel when we're making cores for some of my swords and things like that. So little cutting bits are great for cutting the steel. Next up on the tools that you will need for working with EVA foam. The best sandpaper to use other than the Dremel sanding bit is 220 grit sandpaper. I prefer 3M. Yeah, I'm doing free advertising for 3M right now. So 220 grit sandpaper is great for sanding EVA foam solely because it is not too coarse, it's not too light. It allows you to, like if you sand with your Dremel and you have some variations or high, low edges, things like that, 220 grit sandpaper will allow you to smooth out your EVA foam before you heat treat it. So I will in later videos go into detail about how you do the process of cutting, sanding, and then heat treating. Now another tool that is indispensable when working with when foam smithing, I like to use PVC a lot because it's great for making the hilts on weapons, and it's great for making barrels of rifles and things like that. All the barrels of my rifles are PVC. So a really indispensable tool that you will need is a pipe cutter. These are awesome. This will cut through your PVC like butter. You don't have to worry about cutting it by hand with a handsaw. Moving on to the other tools, I guess you could call them, the materials. I'm going to add materials into the tools. Foam. I am a foam smith. Foam smithing means I make foam look like pretty much anything. So I can make it look like metal, I can make it look like wood, I can make it look like leather. You name it, I can make it look like that. Here are a couple of examples. Example number 1. My Gears of War helmet. This one was really fun to do. It actually reminds me of another tool I need to add to the list. It is your wood burner or soldering tool. Those are great for making details into the foam after you paint it, and it leaves this awesome scarring effect that looks like the metal is gouged. So I'm gonna put that on the list too. This would be an example of making EVA foam look like metal. Example number 2. Making EVA foam look like wood. Bam! This is my Skyrim Light Imperial Shield. This was one of the first attempts that I ever made at making wood out of EVA foam. It was a really, really fun project, and I need to make some more of them. EVA foam can be made into anything, and there are different thicknesses of EVA foam that are used for different things. I typically use only 2 different forms of EVA foam. Form number 1, 10mm EVA foam. Anti-fatigue floor matting is what it's technically called. This is the thickness of 10mm EVA foam. That stuff is amazing. That is what you use for the bulk of your builds. Next up we have 5mm. Obviously, if you're doing the math, 2 of these will equal 1 sheet of 10mm EVA foam. Yay, man! So this is great for doing build-up details and making your props vary in thickness, and it helps build up the detail. It looks all beautiful and stuff. So you see the difference between a 10mm piece here and a 5mm piece right here. Lots of variation makes your weapons stand out and look all pretty and stuff. Weapons, armor, whatever. Sorry. Yeah, you know what I mean. Next up on your tools that you will need. You will need a ruler, my friends. A yardstick preferably, because then you can get all the large measurements and things like that. Now, you know why you need a ruler, straight edges and things like that. But you're working with EVA foam and you're making armor, weapons, things like that. Especially armor. So you will need another type of ruler because you cannot get a correct measurement with a tape measure, because there's a difference between the thickness of the foam and the thinness of a regular tape measure. So what you're going to do is make yourself a foam ruler. So that's what these little scrap pieces that come off of the EVA foam are great for. What you'll do is you'll make regular markings along it that would be the same as your ruler. And then when you're making different sizings for, say, you're working on a gauntlet or something, and you want to know how thick the EVA foam around your wrist, or how, what the measurement would be around your wrist, you'll wrap it around your wrist, and then obviously measure it with your little foam tape measure, and then you'll have the exact measurement that you'll need, and you won't have to do any adjusting for the thickness of the foam, because you've already got a foam piece that is the same thickness as the armor. Now we get to move on to the fun part, adhesives. I like adhesives. You will need a lot of ventilation. I didn't go over that in the safety portion, but when working with a lot of these tools and a lot of these products, you will definitely need some ventilation in your home, because otherwise you will be getting a bit high. Yeah, I said it. The first adhesive that I was talking about for a general hold, contact cement. This stuff is great for holding on to, or for pretty much, this is the main building material that you'll be using for your projects. Because this stuff is like, this stuff works so well, it's amazing. You put it on one side, put it on the other side, let it dry, and boom, you got an instant bond. When you want a stronger bond, the next thing you want to use, BJB's Armor Bond Adhesive or E6000. They're both great options. Now the cool thing about BJB is that it has, you have 2 different types of glue. You have a flexible kind and a non-flexible. So when it comes to, say you're trying to glue your rib armor or something like that, that's an area where you're going to get a little bit of flexibility. You put this BJB flexible adhesive on there, and it'll have that same hold as E6000, and you don't have to worry about it breaking because it's a non-flexible glue. Another great adhesive for a quick bond is Gorilla Glue, super glue gel. This stuff is awesome. I use this for like, I typically use it for just putting on little details and greeblies and things like that, because then I don't have to worry about them falling off, and I don't have to worry about letting contact cement dry and then sticking it on there and things like that. Next up on your list of adhesives / tools, it's both hot glue gun and hot glue. This stuff is amazing because it is your best friend when attaching straps to your EVA foam. That's pretty much all I use it for, strapping. I like using this for strapping. In another video, I will be going into how I do all my strapping and such, but yeah, get yourself a nice 210 hot glue gun, and it will be indispensable to you. Next up on the things that you will need for foam smithing and for prop building, you will definitely need greeblies. Lots and lots of greeblies. Now, if you don't know what greeblies are little, pretty much any little real world thing that you can repurpose to make it look like a cosplay item. Here's a perfect example. Brass brads from, I got these at Walmart for $2, 200 of them. I use these to make rivets in my armor. So, all these rivets you see on this thing, lots of rivets, that's all brass brads. Oh look. More brass brads. Brass brads are great. Greeblies are great. Greeblies, any little thing like washers, screws. I like to save them all, so that way I can use them later in case I need them. You know. Now, obviously, I don't save every little item that I come across, because then I would be a hoarder, and that would be weird. No, I like to save little things in this little tub here, and I can usually see them from the bottom. So I have like all these little greeblies. So like if I randomly, if I'm trying to add details to something and I don't have anything, I will just go into this little tub and I'll dig around, and I'll usually find something that I need within there. But obviously you will need paintbrushes and spray paints and things like that, but we're going to go into that in a later video. Now, I know that many of you are in different states or different countries, so some of these tools might not be available at some of the stores that I've said. So pretty much every single tool that I have spoken about in this video is available at a hardware store. And as far as foam and things like that, if you can't find it at Harbor Freight, or you don't have a Harbor Freight near you, because they definitely have the best prices. So the best option for you, if you don't have Harbor Freight near you, or Lowe's carries them too, the best way to do it would be finding them online. You can definitely find those online easily. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in to the first ever episode of Ebony Warrior Studios Prop Shop. I guess that's what I'm going to call it. But thank you for tuning in. And I told a lot of you that I would do shout-outs for you, so I'm going to go ahead and go down this list and do some shout-outs for you guys. So shout-out to JF Custom Creations. Shout-out to Morpheus Cosplay. Shout-out to Dollface Cosplay. Shout-out to Casual Assassin Cosplay. Shout-out to Babs Cosplay. Shout-out to Crisscross Cosplay. Smooth Rat Costumes and Props. Tati Bayo. Scorp King Costuming. Darwind Cosplay. Special Ops Props. Cheeky Cheetah Cosplay. Kid Jax Cosplay. Omni Zion. Tiny Little Man Cosplay. Identity Crisis Costuming. Cadla Crast Cosplay. Kaiju Cosplay. Raymond Ramos Cosplay. Cobatron Props. Plus Sauce, Props and Costuming. Kestra Cosplay. Shan Claw. Daniel Ifrita Cosplay. Unundul. Pat's Props Cosplay. Tokyo Akira. Stellara Nebula Cosplay. Smooth Cosplayer. Mamanis Cosplay and Props. J Dangers Cosplay. TK Cosplay. Kitty Cosplay. Exotic Dino. And Cosplay Promotion Team. Now there are a couple of them that are not cosplay pages on Facebook, so I will go ahead and put the links down at the bottom for everybody that let me know that they wanted a shout out. All these people that are getting shout outs, they're phenomenal prop builders and artists and creators. Go ahead and check them out. Give them a like. Let them know that you are supporting them, because that is what cosplay is all about. It is a community about support, learning, and growing. Again, thank you so much for joining me on this first video. If you have any other questions or would like to put up suggestions for the next video, go ahead and put comments down below, and go ahead and subscribe, because there is more to come. Very excited to show you guys what Ebony Warrior Studios has to offer. And as always, Ebony Warrior Studios is about blinding speed, master quality, and untold savagery.